1, 2, 1, 2. This the I'm a Boss remix. Meek Millie. Let's go.
I'm riding, I'm riding by Hollywood side, right inside of my Beamer 760i. Try me let off 60 shots again. We got the city hiding, popping like it's supposed to be. Do not menage and got no business standing close to me.
What's up? It's Noah Taborda here on Sunday night on your favorite Sunday night show on National Sports and Spreaker.com. And I'm here with my co-host Blake Devine after a great week of sports. How you doing, Blake?
Pretty good. Great weekend of sports. I mean, arguably the best weekend we've had. I mean, I remember last night watching the Red Sox in the ALCS. I'm watching Florida State just demolish Clemson. And then I'm also watching my favorite team, USC, play Notre Dame. So just so many great games on last night. And then also a very heavy and exciting NFL schedule today. So it was a great weekend in sports, to say the least.
Yeah, so we are over 1,000 plays officially now. Thank you guys so much. After last episode, listener number 78. I know who 77 was. I don't know who 78 was. 77 was, of course, Jake Liker, who will be on later on in the show. So that was 999 overall. And we are also at 50 likes on Facebook. So thank you guys for that, too.
Yeah, thank you guys. And then just be sure to call in if you want to share your input on our show. The number is 224-563-8444. I'll say that one more time, 224-563-8444. And then that's just the call in and share your input. And totally open to that. And we'd just love to hear your opinions on sports. And then just be sure to like our Facebook page, Blake and Noah, live from LA to Chicago. And then on Twitter, we're at Blake_and_Noah. So that's us on Twitter if you'd like to follow us. So be sure to keep up with us on social media. And we appreciate all your likes of our show. And then also getting to 1,000 plays. That's pretty impressive. So thank you guys for all that.
Yeah, and when you guys call in, it makes it that much better on the show. Unfortunately, no callers on the show I was on last night with Jake, but it always makes it better when you have callers. It's funner that way. Whenever we have callers, we answer your questions. So if you're not sure to what to ask, or if you're not confident enough, just ask it anyways. We don't bite.
Yeah, and with that, we're going to move on to our first topic of the day, which is on football, college football. One of the greatest nights I can remember in recent memory. Lots of upsets. 5 of the top 10 teams in college football were defeated this weekend, or this Saturday, may I say. And that list included Clemson getting absolutely demolished versus Florida State in a score of 50. I'm saying 50, yes. This was in Death Valley, and Florida State put 51 points on Clemson compared to their only minuscule 14 points. So 51-14, just an absolute clobbering of Clemson by Jameis Winston and Florida State. Very impressive performance. Also, LSU was defeated by Ole Miss. Texas A&M defeated by Auburn at home. Louisville defeated by USC at home. UCLA defeated at Stanford. And so that was all the top 10 teams that were defeated, but also numerous SEC teams, including Georgia falling versus Vanderbilt, South Carolina falling at Tennessee, and then the last team to go down from the top 25, an SEC opponent, was Florida getting defeated versus Missouri. So a lot of top-tier SEC teams just falling. And that, just full of upsets this weekend. One of the biggest upset-filled weekends I've ever seen in college football. Noah, what did you think about all these crazy upsets?
Well, it was fun to watch them, especially when it had to do with one Johnny Manziel. When he lost to Auburn, I was so happy. Honestly, I love seeing him lose because personally I hate him. I think he's an idiot. I think he's disrespectful. And anybody who likes him, I just don't understand how you could. So for most people out there, it was great to watch him lose. I was a little upset about Stanford beating UCLA, as I'm sure Jake Liker was, because, he's his favorite team. But I really was pulling for UCLA. I thought they were a team that could make a run and get into the Rose Bowl. But after this loss, Stanford was looking like the Rose Bowl team once again. And you just look down this list of so many upsets, and there are teams you never saw coming. Vanderbilt, this is their first win in the SEC. Tennessee's first win in the SEC over South Carolina. So many first win teams in the SEC getting their wins. It was just really shocking.
Yeah, and we'll just start with that SEC as well. You look at the standings right now in the SEC, and they absolutely look upside down compared to how you would have predicted it preseason. In the East, you have Missouri leading by 2 games, 7-0 overall. Who would have thought Missouri? I have no idea. South Carolina 3-2, 5-2 overall, and then Florida with 2 losses, well in conference. Georgia 2 losses, and Georgia 3 losses already this year, and same with Florida. And then Tennessee, Vanderbilt, and Kentucky are all kind of in the back as well as they usually are. But just this SEC East division is just absolutely flipped around. Missouri has a real chance to go to the SEC title game. Who would have thunk it?
I wouldn't have. I know that for sure. I looked at the beginning of the year, and you see Aaron Murray, who is debatably the greatest SEC quarterback of all time. And they have 2 losses. It's just ridiculous. They lose to Vanderbilt, who are sitting there at the bottom, and it's almost unthinkable. To Missouri, I can understand it now because I've seen how well Missouri played, and they're really good. Imagine if they had a healthy James Franklin and not Matty Mock, their backup quarterback. They would be even better. They had that, obviously. It's a tough game when you bring in your backup quarterback, but there's no team close to them. If they win against South Carolina this week, they are going to the SEC championship game. I think they will. I think there's almost no chance that they don't. They will play Alabama. And don't be surprised if they give Alabama a run for their money in that game.
Yeah, great season so far by Gary Pinkel's team. Those Missouri Tigers playing great. But also got to talk about South Carolina. I mean, Steve Spurrier's team was coming into this season with supposedly the best Gamecocks team that he's ever had. Obviously, Jadeveon Clowney, great player, had a really good hit versus Tennessee running back this weekend. But this team has been very disappointing, in my opinion. I had higher expectations for them. 2 losses already, and it always seems like this team is either 10-2, 9-3, somewhere along those lines. But I wanted to see this SEC Gamecocks team. South Carolina Gamecocks team. I wanted to see them playing in that SEC title game and playing in a BCS Bowl. And 2 losses already here. I really doubt they're going to be playing in a BCS Bowl, and highly doubt that they'll be in the SEC title game either unless they get that victory at Missouri, who's now ranked number 5 in the AP poll.
Yeah, South Carolina. And, of course, here's my opinion on Jadeveon Clowney. We've hyped him so much. We've put so much pressure on him, and he's not ready for that pressure. He's a great player. But we've made him seem like he's the greatest player ever to come along. And we may have overhyped him a little bit there. People saying he is a once-in-forever player. Like, he's never, ever will be a player like him again. And we overhyped him, put too much pressure on him. And personally, I think it is the media's fault.
I mean, yeah, you have to credit the media for giving him all this pressure, but also, I mean, that hit versus Michigan, and that you see them hit that guy versus Michigan, and the whole world kind of just exploded on Twitter, on social media, just all that stuff about Jadeveon Clowney, Heisman 2013, and it's very, very rare for a defensive player to get this much hype. So, I don't know, it's something rare to see, but he's kind of faltered under the pressure. But same with Johnny Manziel and Texas A&M. Next team we're talking about here, I think they've been very disappointing as well. Possibly a national title contender, lost to Alabama by only 7 points. That was kind of expected due to all the offseason trauma and how much Alabama wanted to beat them. But losing at home to number 24 Auburn, just totally unexpected for me. I know you were hating on Johnny Manziel earlier, but I really like to see this guy play. He's one of the most electrifying kind of players you can see in college football. Every single Saturday, you're always watching him, always waiting to see for the next exciting play, for him to burst out. And I don't know, I really enjoy watching this guy, but I'm highly disappointed with this Texas A&M team. Their defense is just absolutely atrocious. At least giving up 28 points or more in all of their games so far, other than versus SMU, only 13 points. But just their defense cannot stop anybody, cannot stop the run, they cannot tackle. And I'm highly disappointed with this Texas A&M team as well. I really thought that they could maybe be a dark horse BCS title contender at the preseason, but 2 losses already for this team.
Yeah, I agree with you on the fact that he is a electrifying player. And the fact of the matter is I just like seeing him lose. I don't think he's a bad player. I think he's a terrific player. But I just like seeing him lose. I just don't like his attitude. But Auburn clearly outplayed them. They were just a much better team. You have Auburn's quarterback Nick Marshall. He was able to have a good game, throwing for 2 touchdowns in that game to go along with 236 yards. And, of course, Trey Mason. What a game. This guy just went off on Texas A&M's defense. He ran for 178 yards and a touchdown. And then, of course, they have another running back whose name is also it's a quarterback. Never mind. It's their quarterback, Nick Marshall. So you don't normally see a quarterback run for many touchdowns, but this guy ran for 2 touchdowns. Second time he's done that this year. He did it against Ole Miss as well. So this guy definitely proving he can use his legs as well. And Auburn, maybe another Cam Newton in the making for them.
Yeah, and just another SEC West team to talk about here, LSU. I know our buddy Nick Spatafora up there in Corvallis was really talking about his LSU Tigers preseason and hyping them. But this is one of the weaker defenses that I've ever seen with the Tigers, always known for their unity on defense and how good they are on defense and how it powers their team to victories. But this year it's really been the offense that has powered them with Zach Mettenberg, and the defense has just been atrocious as well. Another team very disappointing so far, and their defense has just not pulled through. Losing to Ole Miss on Saturday night. Ole Miss is a very good team, but I do expect LSU to beat teams like Ole Miss. Tough opponents in the SEC every weekend, but 2 losses already, and then they got to play at Alabama on November 9th. That, I think, is just an automatic loss. With already 2 losses, I do not think they're going to beat the number 1 Alabama Crimson Tide at their place. I highly doubt that. And then they have to play the next week versus Johnny Manziel and Texas A&M. So potentially 4 losses for this LSU team, and also potentially 4 losses for Texas A&M as well, who is playing at Missouri and at LSU in consecutive weeks to end the regular season. So just this whole SEC is just very upside down, other than a team like Alabama and a team like Missouri, who's just kind of come out of nowhere.
Yeah, here's the thing with LSU. Their defense plays terrific one week, allowing 6 points to Florida, and their offense struggles, only getting 17. Then the next week, they allow 27 to Ole Miss, a team that is not known for its offense and doesn't really have that great of an offense. Florida has a much better offense, so you're not sure what team you're going to get. They really, if I were them, I would get their confidence straight next week when they are playing at home against Furman, which honestly, I don't know why that's in their schedule. I just want to look at who's on Furman. Like, do they play? What conference do they play in? They play Southern Conference. That's the name of their conference. They are bad. They've lost to Gardner-Webb, Coast Carolina, Chattanooga, Elon. So they're in a pretty bad one. They're in the same conference as Wofford, of course, and that's a team we know got killed by Baylor. So really a confidence booster for them as they try to get their confidence back up. Against Alabama, I think they have a shot, but it's a very, very small shot. Of course, going to Tuscaloosa, one of the most difficult things to do.
Yeah. And now, I think, unless you have any more points in the SEC, Noah, I'd like to move on to the Pac-12 and just talk about UCLA-Stanford.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so with the UCLA-Stanford, this was a very exciting kind of back-and-forth game, very defensive battle. It was only 3-0 by the time of halftime. And then at the end of the third quarter, Stanford led 17-3. But UCLA's offense just did not look very good. Brent Hundley is kind of starting that sophomore struggle that we see sometimes. And this guy, he's a very, very good quarterback, no doubt about it. But his team is not supporting him on the offensive side of the ball, and also maybe on defense as well, to get those victories for UCLA. Stanford, very disappointing last week, losing to Utah, but coming back and playing strong versus a very good and improved UCLA team. Getting the victory, Stanford kind of reestablished itself right now as a dark horse BCS title contender maybe, but definitely a team to look to maybe get to the Rose Bowl, especially if Oregon finishes undefeated. But they still have to play versus Oregon on November 7th on a Thursday night, and that's going to be very exciting. So, Noah, what did you think about this UCLA-Stanford game?
Well, my opinion, UCLA is now in danger of not going to a title game, not going to the Pac-12 title game because of a team known as Arizona State. Arizona State right now does not have to play against another ranked team except for UCLA and Oregon State. If they lose to both, they'll have 3 losses. UCLA right now, they play against Oregon next week, And, of course, that's not really...
Automatic loss, definitely.
Yeah, and then they play Washington, and they play Arizona State right after that, so it's going to be definitely tiring. UCLA may have cost themselves the even a chance at the UCLA title, yeah, the Pac-12 title game. And Arizona State, because they're going to the Pac-12 championship, if they manage to do so, they could find themselves in the Rose Bowl instead of Stanford, because Stanford, of course, playing on the same side as Oregon, will not be able to go to the championship game. And if Stanford struggles and they can't seem to right the ship and they bounce back from this loss badly, Oregon State now looks like a team that could do it as well, led by quarterback Sean Mannion.
Yeah, and just got to mention as well, Washington, I really was believing in Steve Sarkisian's team after starting the season with a 4-0 record, but I saw that schedule looming at Stanford and then versus Oregon at home and then at Arizona State, and I always was kind of concerned and wanted to see how they would fare. But in those 3 games combined, all 3 losses, all 3 giving up at least 31 points, 31 to Stanford, 41 to Oregon, and then 53 at Arizona State. I was very disappointed. They got blown out in Arizona versus those Sun Devils to look very impressive, both versus Washington and versus USC. My Trojans gave up over 60 points to Arizona State, but Washington, I'm very disappointed. 3 losses already, and this was a team ranked in the top 15 and looking to possibly make a Big Tier Bowl, possibly. And I'm looking at their schedule right now. They also have to play UCLA, so they could, and at Oregon the next week. So maybe 5 losses for this team who had really, really high hopes with a great start to the year. It's unfortunate because I really like this Huskies team.
Yeah, and if you've noticed, there's a pattern: 31-45, then 53. That's up 12 points each week. So each week they got progressively worse on defense. And this loss against Arizona State, I think Arizona State is a phenomenal football team. Sure, they lost 2 games, but they lost against Notre Dame in a heartbreaker and Stanford. So those are... I guess Notre Dame isn't as acceptable, but Stanford's an acceptable loss. If they can beat Oregon State, which I don't know if they can because Oregon State has Sean Mannion. I think he's now a Heisman candidate. But they are a good team. But Washington has been really disappointing. They are the Northwestern of the Pac-12. They get in their big game and against a top team. Northwestern against Ohio State, Washington against Stanford, and then they both lose 3 in a row right after losing their big game. It's like right after the hype happens, and they handle the hype well in that game, they drop. Washington lost by 3 to Stanford, in it to the final second. And then I just feel like it completely demoralized them, and Washington just doesn't look like Washington anymore.
Yeah, I'm looking right now at Arizona State's schedule. They do have to play at UCLA. That could be a game which determines who goes to the Pac-12 championship game representing the South Side, because I believe UCLA will lose to Oregon next week. They'll have 2 losses. Arizona State, if all plays out well, they would only have 1 loss, but I believe if whoever won that game would get the automatic rights to go to that Pac-12 game if they both won their last game of the season. So I do think UCLA still has a very good shot of reaching the South, or winning the South and going to the Pac-12 title game. And with that, we'll just move on over to Oregon. And Noah, I know you're dying to give some opinions on how good Marcus Mariota's team is. And those Oregon Ducks just looking absolutely unstoppable on offense and very good on defense as well.
Yeah, so right now, in fact, actually the BCS rankings just came out. And I'm very, 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 very angry. Because Florida State is ranked above Oregon. I can't fathom that. Oregon, to me, is the best team in the country, bar none. Marcus Mariota has gone up until this game without having a turnover. He has just destroyed every team that he plays against. It's just not even close. 2,051 yards, throwing on the season, 19 touchdowns. Not to mention when he runs the ball, he's phenomenal as well. Only having one game below 30 yards rushing. He's rushed for a touchdown in every single game. It's just, I don't know what to say to it. I think that they have to be above Florida State. I respect Florida State as a team, but I just can't. I don't care if they lost to Clemson, because people say Clemson, what that was good about them is they beat Georgia. But now we're saying Georgia's not even that great anymore. So I don't understand it. I think Oregon should be number 1 in the country. I think they should make it to the BCS championship. If Florida State goes undefeated and Oregon goes undefeated and Florida State and Oregon doesn't make it, if Oregon doesn't get their shot at the title game, like they get it taken away every single year, I have given up, and I'm really happy that there'll be a BCS playoff come next year.
Yeah, I'm just listening to you, Noah, right now, and I'm sorry, but I just have to disagree with you on a few points here. Number 1 is outright. It is definitely Alabama's position. Nobody can disagree with that. This team has been absolutely the best team in college football the last 4 years, 3 out of the last 4 championships, 2 straight, and looking to add a 3rd straight this year and 4 out of 5. You look at their schedule this year. Started the season off versus Virginia Tech at a neutral site game, just absolutely blew out the Hokies, who are ranked number 14th, I believe, in these recently released BCS standings. Next week, have to play at in College Station versus Johnny Manziel and Texas A&M, a crazy crowd. Just beat Texas A&M by the skin of their teeth, 49-42, and then played Colorado State, blew them out, and then next week, go head-to-head versus a very good Ole Miss team, which recently knocked off LSU, and beat them 25-0. And then we saw them versus Arkansas this week, 52-0. This Alabama team outrightly deserves the number 1 spot. No disagreeing with that. And then with my argument for Florida State at number 2, we haven't really gotten to talk about the game versus Clemson in full detail yet, but I guess now is the perfect time. Florida State definitely deserves number 2. I don't care how dominant Oregon has looked. Their schedule hasn't been as tough as Florida State's has. Going on the road versus a number 3 team who had already defeated Georgia, who at the time was ranked number 5, just absolutely crushing this team, 51-14. This game was over at halftime, no doubt about it, with a 20-7 lead in Death Valley versus a full-on 85,000 people just screaming and hollering. Jameis Winston definitely deserves the 1st spot in the Heisman ballot. Marcus Mariota definitely at numbers 2 right now, in my opinion. And that's just my argument for Florida State. And they're going to play Miami in 2 weeks in Tallahassee, another top 10 team for Florida State to prove themselves. And I expect a victory in that game. So Florida State deserves the number 2 ranking. Alabama deserves number 1. And Oregon is at number 3, but they still have to play versus Stanford and versus UCLA. So that could jump them up, but their schedule has not been as tough as those other 2 teams. And then your Ohio State Buckeyes do deserve number 4, despite the nation's longest winning streak.
Oh, yeah, I definitely agree with you on the Ohio State. But once again, I'm going to disagree with the thing about them not being that good. Their schedule not being that good. Tennessee, in case you didn't realize, just knocked off SC. Southern California, South Carolina, and they beat them 59-14. They beat Cal, which kept it within 18 with Ohio State, and actually was in it for a little bit, 55-16. They beat Washington, who competed with Stanford. Now we know, of course, they're not as good. They destroyed them. And Clemson, I don't think you can say Clemson now is a team that you automatically say is better than all of these teams, because Clemson, their marquee win that really got them up there was their win over Georgia. And Georgia now has lost to Vanderbilt. I'll say that again. Vanderbilt. And then you look at the other games. They struggled against BC. They are I don't think they're even that great. I don't think Taj Boyd has played up to his level. I agree that Florida State is definitely one of the top teams in the country. But I think that also Marcus Mariota is better than him because he's just destroyed everything in his path. Jameis Winston has played well, and I really like Jameis Winston, and you know that, Blake. I really do like him, and I think that he will be number 1 in the Heisman list by the time this year ends. I agree with that, but I think right now it is Mariota's. But I am rooting for what's his name? Winston, yeah.
Yeah, Winston. Just gotta add on to your point, just to make it more clear what I'm arguing. Oregon's schedule, you look at it. And the signature victory is that game versus Washington, but Washington is not very good. 3 losses already, and I do not believe Steve Sarkisian's team is going to finish. I believe they can lose 2 more games. They'll finish probably 7-5. So this next 2 weeks versus UCLA and versus Stanford is really going to determine how Oregon falls in those final BCS standings, because these are the 2 marquee games which are going to prove if Oregon is for real. And if they blow out both of these teams, this is going to put them in that BCS title game, no doubt about that. But at home versus UCLA next week, and then on the road versus Stanford on the farm, and that's going to be a big determiner, a Thursday night game. Short week for that team. Those 2 weeks are really going to bolster Oregon or kind of make them just a solid number 3 team if they win, but just by little comfortable margins. So we'll see how that plays out.
Yeah, really quickly. Also, Florida State hasn't played a team that's defensively good yet. You do realize Clemson they have Vic Beasley and nobody else. But on Arizona State, one of their losses, Notre Dame, as I said, was unexcusable. But their other loss was Stanford. They beat Wisconsin, who is one of the top teams right now in the country, one of the top teams in the Big Ten, top 25 team. So the loss by Washington, all of their losses have come against good teams. It's not like they just play against bad teams and lose. Washington is a good team. Personally, of course, I'm rooting for Florida State and Oregon to lose because I'm an Ohio State fan. But if Oregon is denied their chance at a national championship, as they are every year, it's a disgrace because last year they got denied it. Kansas State, they ended up playing Kansas State. Did you see what they did to them? They just killed them. It wasn't even a competition.
But Oregon did lose to Stanford at home, and that was very disappointing because I think their team would have competed very well, better per se than Notre Dame did in that national title game versus Alabama. I'm not saying they would have beat Alabama, but I'm saying it would have been a way better game to watch. But they did lose to Stanford, and in 2 weeks in Palo Alto at Stanford, that's going to be an upset alert for this Oregon team. Mark my words, if they're going to lose a game this year in the regular season, that is going to be the game. Coming off of a victory probably versus UCLA, that is going to be the game to keep an eye on, everybody.
And for Florida State, the game to keep an eye on, Idaho. No, I'm just kidding. In all seriousness, Miami in 2 weeks is definitely the game to keep an eye on. That'll be a better game than their game against Clemson. I'm sure of it. I have no doubt in my mind that Miami is a better team, and they will have a rematch. They will play each other again. Virginia Tech will lose. Miami, Florida State will play 2 weeks from now, and then they'll play in the ACC championship game.
Yeah, and that would be very, very entertaining to watch because the reason the ACC was formed as it was so that teams like Miami and Florida State would play each other. Because back in the days when Bobby Bowden was the coach of Florida State and Miami was very dominant. They put these two teams, two big-time rivals, on opposite sides, the Coastal and Atlantic, respectively, because they thought that they would be playing each other head-to-head every year in that ACC title game, but that has not happened yet. So that would be a very exciting ACC title game, and I could not wait to see it if they're both ranked like in the top 10. And that's the reason they created the ACC as it is. So little history note for all you guys out there.
Yeah. Just one more thing I was about to say. Let's see if I can remember it here. God, I'm blanking now.
Would you like to go over your Heisman top 3?
Okay, let's just do the Heisman. So, yeah, you guys all know who my number 1 is. I've made it pretty clear. It's Marcus Mariota. And at number 2, I am putting Jameis Winston slightly above Johnny Manziel. Despite Johnny Manziel having 2 losses, Johnny Manziel is still a phenomenal player. And obviously now you know who my number 3 is. Wow, I gave you guys absolutely no suspense for my top 3. So you guys have my top 3. Number 3, Manziel. Number 2, Winston. And number 1, by a margin right now, Marcus Mariota. Blake, would you like to have a drum roll before you go number 1? So let's do from 3 to number 1 since they didn't get suspense for me.
Oh, for my number 1.
Okay.
Yes.
Shoot, do your top 3, go.
Okay, top 3. Number 3, very similar to yours, Johnny Manziel. Despite the second loss of this season for this Texas A&M team, very strong performance, and he's playing just like he did last year. Great performances on offense. It's the defense that's killing this team, and I believe their loss versus Alabama is very validated because the Crimson Tide are just unbeatable of late. So he's number 3. Number 2 and number 1 is where I need my drum roll, Noah.
Here we go, drum roll.
At number 1, I have Jameis Winston after his victory versus Clemson in Death Valley. No doubt about it. Threw for about 444 yards, I believe, and a rushing touchdown, 3 passing touchdowns. Definitely looked like the number 1 player in the nation in the Heisman. favorite as of right now. Marcus Mariota very slimly behind at number 2, but we're just going to have to see how both these teams play out. Oregon and Florida State, it's going to be a battle, but I do expect these two to be kind of the two front runners for the rest of the season because their teams are both 2 and 3 respectively, and they're both just some phenomenal dual threat quarterbacks for both teams respectively.
Yeah, and now it's time to move on to the NHL. Now, crowd, don't yawn. Don't yawn about it. Honestly, we have to do it. You know, hockey season is now in full swing, and even though we don't cover it most of the time, you know, eventually we do have to cover it. So let's.
Yeah, hockey's an exciting sport. And the West Coast is growing with the obviously with the Anaheim Ducks and with the LA Kings and with the San Jose Sharks. I mean, we got a lot of West Coast kind of hockey is growing as we know it, but yeah, it's exciting on here. I don't know about how it is in Chicago. It's probably pretty popular sport with the Blackhawks playing so well.
Oh yeah, it's definitely popular, except for right now because despite Chicago being in second, they do have 3 losses and only 5 wins. Though 2 of those losses did come in overtime. But let's go straight to the standings right now. In first right now, obviously the first year with only 4 divisions. We're going to start with the side that has 8 teams in each division. Detroit currently leads the Atlantic, tied with Toronto. Both have 6 wins and 3 losses. Then at 10 points, we have 3 teams tied for that spot: Boston, Montreal, and Tampa Bay. Then after that, Ottawa with 8, Florida with 6, and then coming in last in that division right now, Buffalo, who's only managed to scrap out 1 win and 1 overtime loss. Then we go to the Metropolitan, and a team that definitely looks like a contender right now, and possibly a Stanley Cup favorite, the Pittsburgh Penguins, once again playing very well. 7 wins, 1 loss for 14 points. Carolina have 11. From then it just drops off in this order: the Islanders, then Columbus, Washington, New Jersey, New York Rangers. Then another disappointing year for another team that really normally does well. The Philadelphia Flyers sit in last. In the Western Conference, Colorado has been phenomenal. They have barely allowed any goals this year, and a lot of that can be attributed to Giguere, who's actually been a phenomenal goalie for them. Of course, you also have Simon Varlamov, their backup goalie, who's also done phenomenal. And they're holding off the Blackhawks right now, who are in second place with 12 points, then 11 points with St. Louis. Both have 9, Nashville and Minnesota, Winnipeg, and then Dallas. In the Pacific, of course, this is where all of those California teams come into effect. San Jose currently leads it, followed by Anaheim, Phoenix, and Los Angeles, all tied with 12. Vancouver with 11, Calgary with 8, and Edmonton with 5. Now the statistics leaders. Currently leading in points, Pittsburgh's Sidney Crosby, and he has 5 points advantage over Joe Pavelski and Patrick Marleau of the San Jose Sharks. Then in goals, Sidney Crosby has 7 to lead it, tied with Alexander Steen, Patrick Marleau of the San Jose Sharks, Alex Ovechkin, and the rookie who had a Goal of the Year candidate between the legs, right into the corner shot, Thomas Hertl, who's just been phenomenal. But yeah, that'll about do it right now. The best goalie, just let me say it right now, is Tuukka Rask with the best save percentage, and goals against average is Josh Harding of Minnesota.
Yeah, it's been a good start at the NHL season. I cannot say that it is one of my favorite sports to watch, but I always think hockey is very interesting and a very different sport compared to the rest. But I just want to ask you, Noah, not being a very avid hockey fan, as I just stated, what is up with the division format? Only 4 divisions? Why did they change it this year?
Honestly, I have no idea. I believe I actually may know though. I think I know it. I believe it was because of the time schedule and the traveling, and they wanted to make it more time oriented. So they divided into 4 divisions, like all the people on certain parts. As you can see right now in the NHL standings, you know, you look at it right now. We'll just pick one of the random ones. Let's do the Metropolitan. You've got Pittsburgh, Carolina, the Islanders. Columbus is on the Eastern time zone as well. You've got Washington in Eastern, New Jersey in Eastern, New York Rangers in Eastern, and Philadelphia in Eastern. Then you have Atlantic. Detroit is, I believe, in Eastern. Yeah, all of those teams are in Eastern as well. And then the Western, you have a couple of teams that aren't. Like Dallas is not in Central time zone, but the rest of them are in Central time zone. And then in Pacific, of course, they're all in Pacific time. So from what I see here, it was mainly based on time. But it really hurt a lot of the big rivalries like Detroit and Chicago, as Detroit, for the first time ever, won't be playing them as many times. Detroit now in the Atlantic, and Chicago in the Central, so they're in opposite conferences now.
Yeah, okay, so that makes sense. And that's pretty interesting as well with the time, maybe trying to make the popularity of hockey bigger. And I also know that this year is going to be the first year ever that there's going to be a hockey game played at Dodger Stadium, Chavez Ravine. It'll be between the Kings and the Anaheim Ducks. I think that's very notable. If you guys would like to see it, just look it up on the internet. Dodger Stadium, Kings versus Ducks, and it's a very interesting projected picture for how it's going to look for that hockey game. And I know I'm going to be watching that on New Year's Day for that World Challenge between those two teams, because it's just going to be so interesting to see like a hockey rink on Dodger Stadium. I just can't fathom it with all the heat that we get in LA. It'll be quite interesting to watch. So
Wait,
be
when
sure
are
to
they
tune
doing
in.
it? When are they doing it?
It'll be on January 1st.
Okay, does it get like how cold does it get? How can it cold we can get there?
I mean, depending on the weather, in January usually it gets a little colder, but it'll be like 57 degrees, 45 to 57 degrees. I mean, it could be hot too. It could be up to 70 degrees if it's a really, really hot New Year's Day. It kind of depends. But if it got really hot, I'm sure the ice could get really melty, and that could be potentially dangerous for the players. But I'm just really interested to see how it all works out and how they're able to pull that one off.
Yeah, I mean, I know we do it in Chicago consistently because it's always really, really, really cold here by then. They're playing the Penguins on March 1st. I know they're in LA. I think that'd be basically impossible on March 1st by then. It'd be a little bit too hot. But here it's still going to be relatively cold. And they're probably going to use some kind of... I have no idea how they're going to do this. They're going to have to, put it in a dome in the stadium. They should have to put the whole stadium under a dome with, a freezer. Everybody's going to be frozen to death by the end of the game. I don't know. It'll be interesting to see how that works out. Yeah, and apparently they have it all planned out. But be sure to check it out. I'm sure it'll be on NBC on January 1st. For all you guys that are not really hockey fans, it'll be quite the sight to see Dodger Stadium with ice on it. So I'll be watching that one. And now I think we're going to take our first commercial break here on the Blake and Noah show. And then we're going to talk some NFL next with our analyst, Jake Linkers. So be sure to keep tuning in to our show. We'll be right back.
Your presentation of national sports is brought to you by Spreaker.com. Broadcast and listen to news, radio, and music with one low monthly rate. Your show will be right back after this word from your local stations. You can contact National Sports in a number of ways through Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter with the label National Sports. We love to have you guys a part of our show and can easily join us also through text or call. You're listening to the National Sports radio station on Spreaker.com. America's pastime of baseball is changing as we know it into a sport we've never seen before. Where is the game headed in the next few years? Major League correspondent Cameron Sadeghi has the answer to that question next on the National Sports radio station from Los Angeles, California.
I'm my way down. I'm my way down. One on one, they was trying to keep me way down. But like the sun, I found my way back round.
They tell me I should fix my grill cause I got money now. I ain't gonna sit around in front like I ain't thought about it. A perfect smile is more pity, but it's funny.
We're back for some NFL. We're having some technical difficulties with Jake Liker right now. He will be on soon. But for right now, you're stuck with me and Blake. And before we get into NFL, the number to call, just to make sure you guys do eventually call, because it's been a while since we got a caller, 224-563-8444. I miss callers because I feel like there was a caller we had, on our first show, that just really was I bashed or something because he was talking about how LeBron was destroying everybody. Do you remember that, Blake? There was, that caller at the beginning?
Yeah, it's something about the Pacers being really bad and how LeBron will outrightly win his third championship. It was an outrageous comment, but very notable. And we just love to hear those wacky comments by some of you guys and your opinions on sports.
Yeah, so definitely call in. And like our Facebook page, Blake and Noah LA Chicago, or follow us on Twitter and tweet us at Blake and Noah. That is at capital B LAKE _ and _ capital NOAH. So yeah, let's get into the NFL.
Okay, so I will start with the scores of this week. Currently, right now on NBC, we have a game between the Colts and the Broncos. Peyton Manning's homecoming. A lot of fans wearing half Denver Broncos, half Indianapolis Colts Peyton Manning jerseys. And currently, right now, the Broncos lead 7-3. A touchdown pass by Peyton Manning, so he's 2 of 4 so far for 56 yards. And then the Colts have a field goal, so it's 7-3. Still 2:58 left in the first quarter, but that'll be an exciting game, and we'll be updating you on the score throughout the night. Other notable games: the Cowboys defeated my Philadelphia Eagles 17-3. Then this banged-up Cowboys team really beat down my Eagles with only 3 points by an injured Nick Foles. Matt Barkley got his first plays in with the Eagles. He went 11 of 20 for 129 yards with an interception, so not a great start for the NFL career. Matt Barkley and my Eagles fall to 3-4 with the loss, while the Cowboys improved to 4-3 and took over sole possession of first place in the NFC East. And then another notable game: the Falcons got their second victory of the season, 31-23 over the Buccaneers, who fell to 0-6 on the year. And Rodgers grabbed 2 touchdown passes as the Falcons defeated the Bucs. And then the Detroit Lions and the Cincinnati Bengals had a very exciting game back and forth throughout. But the Bengals ended up pulling out the victory on the road 27-24, improving to 5-2 on the year, while the Lions fell to 4-3. And their field goal in the last seconds lifted the Bengals to a 27-24 victory over the Lions for Andy Dalton, who threw for 372 yards with 3 touchdown passes. Also, A.J. Green, 6 receptions for 1 touchdown. And then Matthew Stafford, 28 for 51 for 357 yards, 3 touchdowns as well for him. And then Megatron, Calvin Johnson, back kind of after an injury-plagued kind of last 2 games, but 9 receptions, 155 yards, and 2 touchdowns for him. But the Bengals pulled out the victory there. Bills defeated the Dolphins 23-21. So the Dolphins, now 3 consecutive losses for them to fall to 3-3 after a 3-0 start to the year. Bills improved to 3-4, and that was a road victory for them. Patriots were defeated by the Jets 30-27 in New Jersey, and those Jets improved to 4-3 on the year, while the Patriots fell to 5-2. And the Jets stunned the Patriots on Folk's controversial field goal in overtime in that game. Tom Brady continued to struggle, 22 of 46 for only 228 yards. But Rob Gronkowski came back from injury and had a great game, 8 receptions, 114 yards. No touchdowns there, but a great start after missing the first 6 weeks for the Patriots. And then Geno Smith, 17 of 33 for 233 yards and a touchdown. Good performance for him in his rookie season. Another notable game: Redskins defeated the Bears 45-41 in a shootout game. Roy Killu's touchdown lifted the Redskins to a wild victory over the Bears. This was played in Washington, D.C. The Redskins improved to 2-4 on the year, while the Bears fall to 4-3. And Robert Griffin, getting back to his normal self, 18 of 29, 298 yards and 2 touchdown passes. Also rushed for, I believe, around 53 yards for him. So maybe getting back to his old self, which would be very good for those Washington Redskins. And then the Bears fall to 4-3, as I said before. Jay Cutler was injured in this game, so hopefully it won't be too bad for that Bears team. Another notable game: Panthers defeated the Rams 30-15. Panthers improved to 3-3, while the Rams fall to 3-4. Those Panthers: Cam Newton, 15 of 17, 204 passing yards and 1 touchdown. And this Panthers team looking pretty good despite a slow start to the season, but now 3-3 and looking hot. Chargers defeat the Jaguars 24-6. Phillip Rivers threw for 285 yards, 22 of 26 passing, and 1 touchdown. Ryan Matthews with 21 carries and 110 yards and a touchdown for him. And the Jaguars fell to 0-7, just atrocious start. This team could possibly go winless on the year. I don't know. We'll see about that. And 24-6 victory for the Chargers versus the winless Jags. 49ers defeated the Titans 31-17. 49ers improved to 5-2 on the year as the Niners top locker in the Titans to win their fourth straight victory. Titans fall to 3-4 on the year. Browns were defeated by the Packers 31-13. Rodgers and the short-handed Packers stopped the Browns, and the Browns fell to 3-4 while the Packers improved to 4-2 and 3-0 at home. The Chiefs barely snuck out a victory versus those struggling Houston Texans, 17-16. This game was played at the Chiefs Stadium. It was very loud as usual, and the Chiefs improved to 7-0 on the season. And those Texans just struggling as well. Case Keenum had a good game, though. His first start, 15 of 25, 271 yards, and a touchdown. Good start for him. Maybe their long-term replacement for Matt Schaub, who has really been hated on by all those fans in Houston. And then the Steelers defeated the Ravens 19-16. Ravens fall to 3-4 on the year, and the Steelers get their second victory, and now they're 2-4. And the Steelers edged the Ravens on Shushimi's field goal in the closing seconds of that game. And then the Thursday night game, Pete Carroll's Seattle Seahawks improved to 6-1 on the year with their 34-24 victory over the Arizona Cardinals. Arizona falls to 3-4 on the year, and Russell Wilson's 3 touchdowns led the Seahawks to a victory past the Cardinals in Arizona. So that is our weekly scoreboard. Noah, what were your opinions on the games this week?
Well, really quickly, it's not Shushimi. It's Swisham.
Okay, yeah. Very tricky last name to pronounce.
Yeah, I was like, Shushimi? Who's Shushimi? I don't know who he is. It sounds like sushi. But yeah, truthfully, it was actually one of the more boring weeks of football I've watched. Right now, there has been some interesting things going on. So, the Colts were held to a punt, but they challenged that the runner was inbounds, and Trenton Holiday fumbled the ball inbounds and was recovered by Indianapolis at the Denver 11. So they are now on the Denver 11, and they have a shot, and that's a touchdown. Andrew Luck just threw a touchdown to Darius Hayward-Bay, and the Colts have taken a 9-7 lead. PAT pending, so they are up now, and that's a costly mistake for the Broncos. You know that Colts fans are letting Peyton Manning hear it right now.
Yeah, exciting game there, especially because it's Peyton Manning's homecoming, but also 2 very good football games, and it'll be exciting throughout.
Yeah, and just now back to the week. You know, the most exciting games were Bengals-Lions and Jets-Patriots, and it wasn't, the call was 100% correct for Nick Folk's game-winning field goal, no matter how much Patriots fans want to deny it. There's a new rule in the NFL, you can't push the offensive lineman in front of you. It's a personal foul. It's an unnecessary roughness call. And they got the call 100% right. Nick Folk obviously hit the field goal, and Geno Smith looked really good. And once again, Tom Brady throws for 0 touchdowns in a game. That is now 2 times in the past 3 games. And I don't know what to think of these Patriots. They're a very unpredictable team. You look at them right now. They're 5-2. This is their first loss, I guess you could say, against a team that they think they're better than. But they lose to Cincinnati. They are able to beat New Orleans in the final seconds, able to tie this game against New York, but they're not able to get it done. I don't know what to make of this team. You look at their schedule. Truthfully, their schedule hasn't been that terrific. Atlanta, we know, is a very underperforming team. Tampa Bay isn't that good. New York isn't that good. Buffalo isn't that good. I mean, obviously New York beat them, but I don't know if New England is really that great of a team. I think New York could maybe push for a playoff spot. It'll really come down to how they perform against, let me see, I want to see the New York Jets schedule. Got to look at that really quickly. It'll come down to how they perform in the next 2 weeks against Cincinnati and New Orleans. After that, the schedule gets really easy. Buffalo, Baltimore, Miami, Oakland, Carolina, Cleveland, Miami, all winnable games. But if they can pull out a win in one of these games, they'll definitely have a really good shot of possibly winning the division.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention our Monday Night Football game. Noah, it'd be proper if you could put on the crickets for this game, as I announced the two terrible teams which will be playing on Monday night.
I got you. Go. Do the teams.
Okay, it'll be between the Minnesota Vikings at 1-4 on the year, and they'll be playing versus the host Giants, and Eli Manning's Giants are 0-6 on the year. So two terrible teams. Yeah, combined 1-10 on the year so far. So just two atrocious teams. Whoever wins this game has a slight chance to possibly revamp their season. But in the Giants' case, I don't even think they can revamp their season with 6 losses already. And Vikings, they'd be 2-4 with a victory. Still, they're both very far out of it. Maybe competing for who has the tankier first. Not sure about that one.
The cricket noise was more entertaining than the cricket noise was more entertaining than that game will be. I'm actually so excited. No, the only reason I care is because the person I'm playing against in fantasy football has Victor Cruz. But besides that, I don't care. Honestly, it's boring. I see no point in watching the game. It's between two teams that are just god-awful. I don't know. I don't know what's wrong with the Vikings. They got better personnel-wise than they were last year, but they got worse team-wise. The only thing I can look forward to is possibly Josh Freeman playing. But besides that, if you're looking for something to do on Monday night, I would suggest having a picnic, sleeping. Maybe sleep some extra time. This is not what you want to do with your Monday night.
Yeah, I just got to make a point here. I was at a sports bar watching Minnesota play Carolina 2 weeks ago, and I just felt embarrassed to be sitting with my friend as his team just got absolutely slaughtered. 35-10 at home. I mean, I just felt awkward sitting there with my friend as his team was just getting annihilated. Minnesota, terrible team, offense and defense. I got to feel bad for Adrian Peterson with the loss of his son, but also it kind of begs the question, should the Vikings trade Adrian Peterson just due to the fact that he's just so talented and this team is just nowhere close to a Super Bowl or even making the playoffs anytime soon?
Well, I don't think they should unless they're looking to get even worse. And before we go any farther, it's finally happened. Jake Liker is, we're about to add him to the call. So let me just add him to the call. Jake, can you hear me, Jake?
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, Jake, we're talking right now about should the Vikings trade Adrian Peterson because they're just so terrible, and with all of his talent, do you think that possibly it would be kind of a pity trade to let him have a chance to maybe win a Super Bowl in his prime?
No. Don't. If you have Adrian Peterson, you don't trade him. Adrian Peterson's the only thing that the Vikings had going for them. So, it's like if the Colts traded Peyton Manning and they never won a Super Bowl. Never mind. But you get the point. Adrian Peterson's the only good thing about the Vikings right now. It would make no sense to trade him. He's not the problem. Everything else is.
Yeah. And we're just adding some notable games of the week. What were your opinions based on Week 7 so far?
Opinions on Week 7. Well, the Bengals impressed again with another late drive. I really started having doubts about them and their performance on the road, but for the second week in a row, Mike Nugent's proved me wrong. Let's see, Atlanta finally got that win they really needed over Tampa Bay. The Jets over the Patriots, I expected a close game, but I never imagined the Jets actually pulling off a win here. The Jets are 4-3, which is, a crazy statement in and of itself. The Steelers got a big win over the Ravens. It looked like this team was heading down the toilet, but like I said, when the Steelers want to play, they can. They are really good at preparing for these big games. And one last thing, the offensive onslaught from the Washington Redskins. Yes, the Bears' defense was hobbled, but I was really impressed. I did not think that this would be a 45-41 game in a million years. And one last thing, early impressions, very positive from Case Keenum. I was happy to see him play well. I was also happy to see Kansas City win, but still, big thumbs up for Case Keenum. I think Houston Texans fans might stop burning jerseys.
Yeah, they're going to save
we'll
money.
Have to see about that one there. Houston's 2-5 on the year.
Yeah, so really quickly, just on talking about like the topic of the Bears. Obviously, I live in Chicago, so basically everybody hates on Jay Cutler, and they have some reason. He hasn't been the quarterback they expected. They expected to get him from Denver, and he would lead them to a Super Bowl. Unfortunately, the best he's done is led them to an NFC Championship, and then of course the Green Bay Packers defeated him in that, where he left with that thumb injury. And then, of course, today he goes down with a groin injury. And all I hear is, thank God, maybe we'll do better without him. And I'm sorry, but you guys are going to realize that the problem this year hasn't been Jay Cutler. It's been the defense. This Washington team, sure, they're an averagely good, they have a decent team. They're not like anything special so far this year. But for them to put up 45 points, for a guy like Roy Halu, who through his career has only had 3 touchdowns, to match that number in a game, how can you say that's Jay Cutler's fault? That's defense. They lost Henry Melton to an ACL injury. Brian Urlacher obviously retired. That's a loss of leadership. I don't think that you can blame it on Jay Cutler. I think you blame it on the defense. And I guess you can understand that when you're transitioning from a defensive to offensive coach, but people just stop hating Jay Cutler. I can't handle it, even though I hate the Bears.
No, I think you're dead wrong. I'm going to be honest here. This is a team that's been fantastic when it comes to turnover margin. Their defense has been injured, but that doesn't mean the Packers were handicapped practically when they won the Super Bowl back in 2010. Jay Cutler, you look right here. He started the game before he was injured, so perfectly healthy Jay Cutler went 3 of 8 for 28 yards and no touchdowns and a pick. You know what? I think Cutler is the problem here. It's not the defense. Yes, it would really help if this defense was healthy, and yeah, their performance was terrible, but you know what? So is Jay Cutler's. The reason that they got to this point isn't because of Jay Cutler, but because of their defense and how they played when they're healthy.
I feel a debate coming on right here. Okay, so let me just say this. Okay, here's the point. Jay Cutler is not Peyton Manning quality. He's not Aaron Rodgers quality. He's not Tom Brady quality. He's not even RG3 quality. He's not Andrew Luck quality. He's not even anywhere close. But he's the quarterback out of any quarterback right now that could get them to the Super Bowl. If their defense performed the way they should, the Bears would have won today, even without Jay Cutler. You look at their schedule. If their defense performs how it should have, if their defense could have done a little bit better against just an atrocious New York Giants team, it wouldn't have been close. Against New Orleans, I guess their defense played averagely well, but against Detroit, obviously getting killed. And their defense in every game, the least points they've allowed is, let me see here, 21. I don't call that good defense. The Packers' defense is playing better than them, and the Packers aren't known for having that good of a defense. And I understand that their defense is hobbled, but still, for a team that's been so well known for their defense to play the way they have is just terrible. And I think that when you look at it, they can't change Jay Cutler. I'm sorry. I don't care who are you going to get. There is no quarterback that's going to be better that you could openly get, not even in the draft. It takes a while to develop quarterbacks, and I think that Bears fans want an immediate impact, and I don't think they're going to get that with any other quarterback.
I'm not saying replace Jay Cutler. I'm saying don't take everything off of Jay Cutler's shoulders. This is definitely his fault. But you can't complain that the Bears only held the Giants to 21 points. That's great. You guys still won. Jay Cutler's shown that he's weak. They need a stronger quarterback here. Listen, I know it's easy for me to say I'm not out there taking hits and getting injured, but I think this really reverts back to the main problem with the Chicago Bears that we've both been overlooking, and that's the offensive line. This team has been historically known for having a terrible offensive line. That's where they need to rebuild. Today, Jay Cutler became the most sacked quarterback in Chicago Bears history. Cutler's not great, but you know what? He can't be great without a good offensive line. And once that defense gets healthier, you'll see how this plays out.
Okay, I'll accept that.
Now, guys, we got to move on to the standings. Very heated debate about Jay Cutler. Both of you guys care about those Bears and how you kind of can argue about how their defense or their offense, which one is better, or which one is worse per se. But let's move on to those standings. The NFC East is where I'm going to start off. Dallas now is 4-3, leading the division solely by themselves. This division started off very atrocious. It's still looking pretty bad, but not as bad as it was. Eagles 3-4. They're in second they're in second place. Washington 2-4. They're only a half game behind those Eagles, and then the Giants at 0-6, nowhere close to the lead. But what do you guys think of this NFC East now that Dallas kind of proved themselves as the team to beat?
Well, Dallas is not an average team. You know, they were obviously in that really high-scoring affair against Dallas, and they played very well defensively today. But once again, it is against Nick Foles, and Nick Foles, not necessarily that great. And, you know, everybody was saying he's going to have such a great week. And personally, I thought that Nick Foles was going to have a good game. I thought that just like not to hit on you, Blake. I know you're an Eagles fan, but it seems like every time you guys get a new quarterback, you guys, all the Eagles fans start hyping, oh, he's the savior of our franchise. And then they either get injured or you realize they're not the savior of the franchise anymore. But Nick Foles got immediately put down like there was no chance. And the Cowboys played very well for a team that was missing DeMarcus Ware and DeMarco Murray. But personally, I really have no interest in this division. I think the Cowboys will win the division, but, you know, the Giants could potentially turn it around. But I say potentially, I don't think they will. I think the Cowboys will end up winning this division.
Yeah, Jake, you look at this division, Dallas is an average team, no doubt about that. But in a division like this with so many terrible teams, average is good enough to win this division.
Yes, this is the new NFC West that we grew up with. Not grew up with, but like a couple years ago, a few years ago. I look at Dallas and think, you know, this team can play defense. Even without DeMarcus Ware, they held Chip Kelly's offense to 3 points out of the end zone. The only good thing for Philly fans about Nick Foles playing and not Michael Vick is that people can't make dog jokes now. That's about it. But it's not really going to matter because this whole offense is starting to look like a joke, and that needs to change. I had high hopes for the Eagles. I know this whole city really did have high hopes for the Eagles. I look at this division still in the perspective of the Giants. Dallas is starting to look slightly above mediocre, which could be trouble for the Giants, but just because they're 0-6, again, I'm not prepared quite yet to rule them out. If they lose their next 2 games, that's when I will throw the towel on them. So for now, I guess Dallas is the best team in the division, but I'm not ready to give up on the Giants.
Okay, now moving on to the NFC North. Both of you guys have some hot opinions on this division. Packers now lead solely with their 4-2 record. Detroit at 4-3, and then Chicago at 4-3 as well. And then there's Minnesota in the bottom dweller at 1-4. But very tight with the top 3 teams so far this season.
Yeah, well, I don't think it'll finish tight, personally. We've just gone over Chicago and all of their issues, and we've basically pointed out every problem with their team. So, immediately now we know that they have a lot of holes. Detroit, I mean, they played well, but we already saw them against Green Bay. I mean, sure, they were missing Megatron, but still, I think Green Bay is a better team. The Packers, they're a good team. Their biggest problems, one, you know, they don't have the greatest pass D. You know, they lost a lot of leaders in that secondary. And 2, if they can stay healthy. See, if they stay healthy, they are a team that can possibly compete. And, you know, it'll be tough, but possibly even make it to the Super Bowl. Right now, you know, if we get healthy, we're a team that can compete with the Saints. We're a team that can compete with the Seahawks, especially with our really much improved run defense. But it's health, really. And sure, we won a Super Bowl without it, but this is just atrocious. You know, Jermichael Finley now has a concussion. And I'm not sure how long he'll be out. But if we lose him, we're down to to Jordy Nelson, Jarrett Boykin, Stonebrunner, Ryan Nelson, Miles White. You know, except for Jordy Nelson, none of those players were like our top targets at the beginning of the season. Health is definitely one of the most important things for us right now.
Yeah, Jake, just got to...
You know, when I think about the NFC North and how the standings are looking right now...
What? Did everything... just got really quiet.
I could literally hear a cricket chirping. Jake, I think I falsely interrupted you, but just keep on going on. Sorry about that for all you guys listening out there. It's hard to communicate when we're going through Skype and we can't all see each other. But, Jake, keep on going with the NFC North.
Yeah, alright, sorry about that. I just gotta think that, I guess, normalcy has been returned to the world. I can finally sleep soundly now that the Packers are atop the NFC North and the Bears and the Lions are slowly fading into the background. I feel like when the Bears and the Lions face off with each other, I look at Detroit, and I think, they're the perfect team to match up with Chicago. Chicago's offensive line is so terrible, and Detroit has a dominant defensive line. So I like the Lions over the Bears. I think, again, they're the only team that's got a real shot at overtaking the Packers, but now that they proved that didn't prove to be much of a matchup, I think that this has proven to be truly Green Bay's division, and their young guys in the Packers continuing to step up. Micah Hyde is slowly making his way into the spotlight. There's a lot of depth at the linebacker position, is what we learned today, and so even with all the injuries, the depth has really helped the Packers, and they still have the best quarterback in the league under center, and there's no way around that.
Okay, yeah, well, that is your NFC North division. It seems like both of you guys are very high on Green Bay because they're your favorite teams, but also very high on their chances of winning this division. But you gotta give respect to the Packers, a very good home team. But now moving on to the NFC South, you have New Orleans, who was on a bye this week. They're 5-1. They lead the division. And then at second, Carolina. The Panthers look potentially dangerous. 2 straight victories, looking very impressive. Atlanta finally got that second victory. I don't know if this team is a Super Bowl contender, but I do think that they do have a chance to possibly get in the playoffs as a wild card team. Matt Ryan looked very good today. And then Tampa Bay is 0-6. They're down, no doubt about that. Noah and Jake, what do you guys think of the NFC South?
Well, the Saints are going to win it. I'm not sure there's much else to say about it. I'd be really surprised if they didn't. I've been kind of disappointed with the Panthers, though I wouldn't be surprised if you saw them finishing up with possibly a 500 record, getting wins possibly against the Buccaneers. A team like they could actually possibly get a win against Miami, though it won't be easy. And then Buccaneers again, possibly a win against New York, but you could possibly see that. Saints are definitely the better team. I don't think there's a question about that. By a long shot, Atlanta may battle back, and they're going to have to keep doing it. They're going to have to keep winning consistently because you look at them right now. They lost those 3 games in a row, and that really put them in the hole. Luckily, they have 2 easy games to get themselves back up to 500. They'll take on Arizona, in Carolina. But then, of course, they're at home against Seattle, which, if they can win, be a huge confidence booster. But it's going to be tough for the Falcons, but I don't think their season is over.
Yeah, Jake, just looking at this division, New Orleans is highly leading this. They look like a definite Super Bowl contender. But Carolina and Atlanta both are showing signs of possibly revamping their seasons after slow starts. Atlanta especially looked pretty good today, but have shown some signs that they could be that team that we thought they were. And then Carolina, Cam Newton's team, looking good as well. What do you think?
This is still New Orleans' division. I mean, I don't know if we can call it a revamping of Carolina's season after defeating the Rams 30-15. So, not so pumped about the Panthers. The only good news for the Buccaneers is that Lovie Smith said that he's going to return to coaching next year. So, when they fire Schiano, I'm hoping that actually happens. They can get Lovie Smith and turn that franchise around and maybe save themselves from the evils that Schiano has worked on this franchise. Yep. So then there's Atlanta and New Orleans. I think Atlanta's really missing their strong defense. I think it's because of the loss of John Abraham. This was a very underrated defense. John Abraham left, and their defensive captain from last year, Sean Weatherspoon, has been injured for quite some time now. He's still on the IR. So once Weatherspoon comes back, maybe this team can start to turn around, but this is still New Orleans' division.
Is that a barking dog I hear, Noah?
No, that's not my dog.
That's my dog. His name's Packer, so... Sorry, here.
He's just shouting out his victory. He's happy that those Packers won.
Yeah, obviously, it's hard to contain it, even if it's against the Browns. And my newborn baby brother was born a couple of months ago. He watched his first Packers game today, and he watched his first Packers touchdown. So starting them early is the way to go.
Yeah, okay, so we'll move on to the NFC West now. Seattle got their victory over Arizona. They're now 6-1, looking very good. San Francisco, after a 1-2 start to the year, they're now 5-2 and barely behind Seattle. St. Louis lost. They were 3-3 last week, and Jake just hates this team. He thinks they're terrible. They're 3-4. Arizona's 3-4, but it really does look like it's Seattle and San Francisco's division to battle it out. Noah, what do you think?
Well, Seattle should win this division because San Francisco, I personally don't think they're even close to as good as Seattle. I don't think Seattle is undefeatable, though, per se. I think that San Francisco obviously has its holes, but Seattle should win this division. You look at their upcoming schedule, they should definitely beat St. Louis. They should beat Tampa Bay. They should beat Atlanta. They should beat Minnesota. So I think they should win their next 4 games. And then, of course, it gets a little tougher with New Orleans and San Francisco, but this team should win the division. I don't think there's any question about that, but San Francisco will be able to stay in the fight the whole way.
Yeah, Jake, you look at this division right now. San Francisco, they're 5-2. They had a very tough start to the regular season, but that was because they had a very tough schedule. They're playing at Jacksonville next week. A good chance to maybe get 5 wins in a row and possibly catch up with Seattle. Who do you think wins this division when it's all said and done?
Seattle. It's not really a battle between Seattle and San Francisco at this point. They've lost some games that they shouldn't have early in the season. Seattle's continued to play well. Again, the Seahawks have not given us any reason to think that they won't win this division. And I think San Francisco, I'm starting to think that they're looking at things in a very negative attitude, almost. You look at Coach John Harbaugh in the third quarter of today's game against the Titans. They led 24-0. And there's been a video surfacing about Harbaugh screaming at the ref for a holding call. I mean, this team hasn't been getting credit, and they're starting to lose motivation. And yes, they've been it was an impressive win today over the Titans, but I'm still not sure if the mindset for this team is in the right place, and I think that starts with the coach.
Yeah, so Seattle on both sides for both Noah and Jake. Very good team there. Now we're going to move on over to the AFC, and we'll start with the AFC East, where New England leads with their 5-2 record, but closely trailed by the New York Jets, who defeated those Patriots today in a very exciting game, 30-27 in overtime. Miami's 3-3. They've lost 3 straight games, so I'm sorry for Jeremy Snell's team, but they look terrible like they usually do. Or not terrible, but like kind of above average middle team. And I thought this Miami team might have a good year, but they're not going to. Buffalo 3-4 at the bottom. So this division has a lot of good teams, but not great teams, Noah.
Yeah. So you look at this, and the Jets possibly could end up making it interesting at the end, because if you look at the standings right now, they are currently, I believe, 4-3. They are 4-3, 1 game behind New England. You look at New England's schedule coming up. They got a little bit easier, but I can't say easier because I guess Miami could beat them even too. Pittsburgh, Carolina, but even if they come away with those 3 wins, then they play Denver and Houston, which could potentially be a little bit tougher. And that's not very easy. And, I think that New England should win it in the end, but I think that New York could possibly make it interesting because after this week against Cincinnati and New Orleans, they get Buffalo, Baltimore, Miami, Oakland, Carolina, Cleveland, and Miami.
Okay, so Jake, gotta ask you one quick question. AFC South right now, you have Cincinnati with a 5-2 record, Baltimore at 3-4, Cleveland at 3-4, and Pittsburgh at 2-4. Is Cincinnati just gonna run away with this division?
In the AFC North, yeah, probably. Baltimore has lost the motivation, and this doesn't come as a surprise. Pittsburgh's trying to save their season, and they're not going to go down without a fight. But I think Cincinnati is going to win this one.
Yeah, okay. So AFC South, really quickly. Sorry, we just got time constraints. We've been going with the football for a while, but it's exciting, even though one's the most exciting week. AFC South, you have Indianapolis, who's currently playing right now. They're 4-2. Tennessee's 3-4. Houston, 2-5. Very disappointing. And Jacksonville 0-7. Noah, is this the Colts division to run away with?
look, Indianapolis just got a safety, and they're down 14-12. But they're competing, and they're making Peyton Manning work for everything he does. Peyton Manning only 92 yards so far in the first half. I think this is their division. I don't think Houston is that great. They really showed a lot of fight against KC, though. I really liked how Case Keenum played. But if Indianapolis doesn't win this division, I would be very surprised.
Okay, AFC West here. Jake, I'm going to ask you, Kansas City or Denver? Both undefeated. Kansas City's now 7-0, and Denver's looking to go 7-0 tonight. And then also San Diego, notable, they're 4-3, and then Oakland's 2-4, not notable. But who wins this division when it's all said and done, and why?
Even though in about 3 hours Kansas City is going to be leading this division, this is still going to be Denver's division. Peyton Manning's the best regular season quarterback. It's really that simple, to be honest. You can't really overthink it when it comes to Peyton Manning in the regular season. I think the Chiefs can fall into trap games that Peyton Manning won't.
Okay, well that is our AFC and NFC divisions. Quickly, we're going to preview some MVP quality players. So, Noah, who are your MVP candidates after 7 weeks of football?
Well, it's been a good 7 weeks. Lots of players performing really well, and depending on Peyton Manning right now definitely should be the leader on everybody's MVP watch list. But, if he can't seem to pull this together, that'll be 2 straight weeks that he has struggled. He obviously had a fumble, and obviously that ended up going out of bounds for the safety. So Peyton Manning could be slowly dropping here. And Aaron Rodgers, of course, is always lurking, waiting for his opportunity to get that MVP award. And his stats haven't been bad either, to say the least. And if Peyton Manning, like I just said, continues on this downslide, you could see Drew Brees passing him, and you can see Aaron Rodgers passing him.
Yeah, and Jake, MVP candidates for you.
To be quite honest, I just don't see Aaron Rodgers winning MVP now that his receiving core has been decimated. This is Peyton Manning's MVP. He's got it wrapped up this year, in my mind. I mean, the way he started the season's been incredible. And again, if you look at history, he's given us absolutely zero reason to think that he is going to start slumping. So I'm going to go with Peyton Manning to win MVP. And if he doesn't for some reason, I'll go with either LaShawn McCoy, who's doing a good job on the ground this year, or Drew Brees.
Okay, well, guys, some previews for next week's games really quickly here. What should we look forward to for next week, Week 8?
Well, you look at next week's schedule, and obviously it's off to the biggest bang. The first game, the Thursday night football game on NFL Network. Not really a game that I'll be watching. Panthers, Buccaneers. Not a game for the stars. But you look down his list, Jets Bengals will actually be relatively interesting. I'm interested to see how the Jets respond after that big week. If they can pull off a big win over the Bengals. I want to see the Broncos Redskins just because I want to see how many points Peyton Manning can potentially put up on that defense. And then again, Peyton Manning didn't do well against the Jaguars, so I don't know. Maybe we'll get to see Brock Osweiler. Now, you keep going. I'm going to just be watching the Packers Vikings solely because we like the Packers. And in London, of course, 49ers, Jaguars, I'll maybe watch a little bit just because it's in London. Besides that, not many other exciting games that I'll be watching.
Yeah, Jake, just an exciting game to look forward to next.
NFL, why do you hate don't send Jacksonville there? This place set up for this game. Maybe they want to turn everyone into Niners fans and look at some London bandwagoners. To be honest, this is a pretty disappointing lineup. Eagles Giants.
Really? Eagles Giants? Like, there's an interesting one there. Yeah, I mean,
they're trying to salvage their season.
I agree with you, though. It's like a really, really weak schedule. I'm more excited for next week, though. Saints-Jets, of course, will be a decent game. You have Steelers-Patriots, which is always fun, even if the Steelers suck. Ravens-Browns was low-scoring and tight. And then, of course, Colts-Texans in the night. And then, Jake, I think we all know what the highlight of this week is going to be. Next week after this is going to be the Monday Night Football game. Packers-Bears.
Yeah. Packers playing on Monday Night Football does not conjure up the greatest memories for me. But now we get real refs and not the zebras from Foot Locker. So hopefully we can pull that win over the Bears.
Yeah, so that wraps up our NFL section. Jake, thanks so much for being on our show. You're always welcome on. It's been really great having you on.
No problem, guys. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, so it's been a great time. We're having some technical difficulties right now. Blake, unfortunately, his connection was lost. So we are going to go... Oh, right when I say that, he's back. Blake, you're back right when I say that we had connection issues.
Yeah, I think we're getting hit by those connection issues which happened last time, unfortunately. Hopefully, the connection gets better, or I'll have to go over by phone. But just on that point, I think we're going to take our second commercial break and then jump right back in for that NBA preseason hype.
Yeah.
What do you think, Noah?
Yeah, we are. Jake is off the show now. I said goodbye, all of that. So, yeah, it is time for a commercial break. So, yeah, we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Sam Rosen, and I'm here with Sam Situation.
Good afternoon and welcome into the corner. It's Chris's Corner here on Spreaker.com, a national sports affiliate.
Hello and welcome to the Cameron Sadeghi Show.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another edition of the Deep Sports Talkery. This is affiliated with National Sports.
Cameron Sadeghi, Chris Sylvester, Sam Rosen, Andrew Goldstein, Daniel Levy, and the entire broadcast crew with Commissioner Robert Dieters. You are live from National Sports Radio Station in Los Angeles, California.
We're back, and once again, jeez, it seems like at the end of every show, just connection and ravages. Our show just hates us. It's terrible. It's worse than the connection when you're behind Brock Osweiler's neck. Unless you have listened to last night's edition of Ricky's Roundup, you won't know what that means. So, listen to it to understand it. But, yeah, so Blake, unfortunately, is not on right now. He will be on in a second, but I am going to cover the NBA section right now before we do that. So let's get into the NBA right away. Oh, we have a Skype calling again from Blake. Okay. Blake, are you on? Do you have better connection?
Let's hope. I'm just gonna go back and do the Skype right here. There's some problems with the phone as well, unfortunately. But we're just gonna try it through Skype and see how it works. And I'm sorry about all you guys out there. Second consecutive week that the Skype connection has just screwed us over here at National Sports. But we're hoping that it kind of gets held down to a level. But let's talk about some NBA here.
Yeah, so the standings right now obviously don't mean much for the regular season. But Chicago is 5-0, undefeated. Derrick Rose playing very well. Toronto and Brooklyn at 4-1. Toronto definitely surprising. Miami 4-2. Cleveland 3-2. Charlotte 3-3. New York 2-2, and the rest of the teams below 500. Philadelphia, Orlando, Detroit, Washington, Atlanta, Indiana, Boston, and the only winless team, Milwaukee, at 0-4. Now we go to the Western Conference. Only one team, just like the Eastern Conference, undefeated, and that would be the New Orleans Pelicans. They are 6-0, guys. Oklahoma City 4-1. Sacramento, that's Princess's favorite team. They are 3-1, and Houston is also 3-1. Clippers and Memphis at 4-2. Then Phoenix, Minnesota, Golden State, Portland, Dallas, all tied at 3-2. Denver and San Antonio are 2-3. The Lakers are 2-4, just above the last place team, Utah, who are at 1-4. But so far, It's been a decent preseason, but we're gonna see where it goes from here in the regular season. So now that I've covered the NBA, let's get into some baseball, and I have the MLB on Fox theme song to play. So we have a little intro for baseball, though I feel like this is actually NFL. It really sounds like NFL, but it's labeled as MLB on Fox, but I'm going to play it anyway. It's definitely on Madden. Yeah, that's definitely the intro for Madden. Welcome into MLB on Fox. I'm Noah Tavorda. No, this is definitely the intro for Madden. Am I not crazy? Is this the intro for Madden?
Yeah, this is not the intro for baseball, but it's the Fox intro, and the World Series will be on Fox, and that'll be on Wednesday night at 8:07 Eastern Time, 7:07 Central Time, and 5:07 West Coast time, and that'll be between my Boston Red Sox and the St. Louis Cardinals. Played at Fenway Park, Game 1. Everybody should tune into this game. It's going to be quite the World Series matchup between two teams who really right now you cannot pinpoint a weakness that is really exposing for either team that the other team could really exploit. It could go either way. Many could agree with that. A lot of good pitching on both sides, strong bullpens as well, and then timely hitting and big hitters on both sides of the ball. Noah, what is your opinion for this World Series matchup?
Well, of course, before we get into that, it's always traditional to talk about how the teams that are in the World Series got to where they are right now. And we're going to start with your Boston Red Sox representing the AL after a good season, to say the least. Let me pull up their schedule right here. Here we go. First half of the season. So the Red Sox jumped out. They won their first two games, and they jumped out to a 5-2 record. They struggled in the next two games, but by the end of the month, they were 18-8. They would continue to do well. 33-23 after the month of May. They were a solid team, to say the least, all year. Never really struggling. 58-39 going into the second half. And, they did well. They were 81-56 going into September, and they just closed it out. Ended up with a record of 97-65, winning the division. And then, of course, came the postseason. They would win the first two games against Tampa Bay before Tampa Bay would get a game back, but they would close it out in Tampa, and they would face off against Detroit. After going down 1-0 in the series, they won 2 in a row to make it 2-1. Detroit would tie it up after a 7-3 beatdown, but then in 2 close games in a row, Detroit was threatening to come back, but Boston held them off, and they were on the verge of the World Series just last night, and they managed to come away with a win despite being down. But Shane Victorino hit a grand slam to send the Red Sox to the World Series. And can you please pronounce the pitcher? What's his name that won MVP?
Oh, it was Koji Uehara, and he's been very clutch for this Red Sox team. The best closer in the game, I think, right now. Just absolutely phenomenal performance during the regular season, but also during the postseason. 3 saves in the championship series, but also got to make note, 2 grand slams by the Red Sox, both very timely clutch hitting for this team. David Ortiz, we all heard about that one in Game 2. Just such a turning point in this series. That was the turning point because being a Red Sox fan myself, down 1-0, and then getting basically no hit by Max Scherzer in Game 2, I really thought that the series might have been done. And then David Ortiz had to go hit that grand slam and get the whole series turned around for the Red Sox. And then very clutch hitting by Shane Victorino last night with the grand slam to vault them into the World Series of the Cardinals.
Yeah. So, timely hitting, of course, big for the Red Sox, while on the other hand, the St. Louis Cardinals, big on their pitching. 5th best ERA in the major league, 8th best whip. So timely pitching was their key for this season. And in the first half, they jumped off to not a hot start, 15-11, but they were able to pull through. And by the end of the first half, they were at 57-36. But they were in dogfight for who would come away with the title. You know, they were competing with both Cincinnati and Pittsburgh for much of the year. So, you know, you go to the second half after the All-Star break, and it came down to the final days. Pittsburgh would take over for a little while, but they were able to pull through. They were able to win their division over Pittsburgh, and then came the postseason. Pittsburgh would defeat Cincinnati to face them, and once again, pitching was key. They would win the first game 9-1. Great pitching performance from Adam Wainwright. But then their pitching struggled a bit. Lance Lynn and Martinez, 7-1 Pittsburgh and 5-3 Pittsburgh, on the verge of defeat. But they would win 2 games in a row, 2-1 and 6-1, behind Michael Wacha and Adam Wainwright. And then, of course, came the series against your LA Dodgers, Blake. They would go up 2-0. Then the Dodgers would get their win behind Ryu, but a win by Lance Lynn, and they were up 3-1. It didn't look good for the Dodgers. A 6-4 win, though, gave them hope. And then the 9-0 onslaught by the Cardinals sends them to the World Series against your Red Sox. 2 teams that wear red. It's going to get a little confusing sometimes seeing which fans are which.
Yeah, both very good fans. Got to make note. The Red Sox Nation, I'm a part of it. Boston's going to be going crazy in Game 1 and Game 2, but also St. Louis just always consistently. Some of the best fans in baseball are from St. Louis, but it'll just be a really exciting series. Game 1, the pitching matchup, it's going to be great. John Lester, 15-8 during the regular season with a 3.75 earned run average. He'll be going up against St. Louis's ace, Adam Wainwright, who had a 19-9 record with a 2.95 ERA during the regular season. Pitching matchup there. You look over to Game 2, which will be the next. Is it the next day? No. Yes, it'll be the next day, same time, at 5:07 Pacific time and 8:07 Eastern time, and that'll be Michael Wacha, who had a terrific championship series where he won the MVP award for those Cardinals, versus Clay Buchholz, who did pretty good for the first 5 innings for the Red Sox before being taken out with only 85 pitches thrown by John Farrell. But 2 very good pitching matchups already. And then if you're going to look all the way into Game 3, which will be the first one in St. Louis, John Mackey, who's been very good this postseason, on the road versus Joe Kelly, who's also been very clutch for the Cardinals. So just great pitching matchups all around, but then that kind of overshadows how good these offenses are, even though the lack of hitting by both squads in the championship series kind of got overshadowed. Red Sox only 4 home runs in that championship series, but all were very timely and very clutch. And then St. Louis, only 2 home runs for that team, one of which was a very clutch one by Matt Holliday, which kind of got the Cardinals rolling in LA in their Game 4 Victor Dodgers.
Yeah, so now that we've done that, a couple of players to watch from my point of view. Of course, you've mentioned some of them already. Michael Wacha, definitely a player to watch. He's been phenomenal so far. Definitely a good playoff matchup between pitchers matchup between him and Buchholz. But the number 1 player to watch from the Cardinals is Carlos Beltran. There is no player in the postseason better than him right now. He is making his candidacy for Hall of Fame. He could be a Hall of Fame player, debatably, and he's just been amazing in the postseason. And surprisingly, this is only his first World Series, but he's going to give big issues for all of the Red Sox pitchers. It's going to be really, really, really tough. But, if they can contain him, it'll be a big win for them. I don't think they will, but we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, and to look with both these teams, the Red Sox, 7 championships. The most recent one was in 2007. And the Cardinals, 11 championships, and their last time was very recently in 2011. And last season, the Cardinals lost in the league championship series to the San Francisco Giants, who went on to win the World Series. And also the Red Sox last season finished in last place in the AL East. So a team that went from worst to first this year, very notable for those Red Sox. But it's just going to be a really exciting series. And Noah, I'm excited to see who do you think will win this series? Because you know who I think will win this series based on my initial playoff predictions. I had predicted that Red Sox would beat the Dodgers, but I came really close. I still got my World Series team, the Red Sox. But Noah, who do you think wins this series between the Cardinals and Red Sox, and why?
Well, this series is going to St. Louis. And I hate to say it. I hate seeing teams win over and over again. But the dominant pitching performances they've had, I'm not sure that the Red Sox are ready for it. I don't think the Tigers are as good pitching. They don't have as good... I mean, I can say the Red Sox do have good pitching. And they have had timely hitting. But timely hitting is difficult when you're not getting people on base to hit those hits. I mean, if you're going up against a guy like Carlos Beltran, it's very, very difficult. And I think the Red Sox could win. I'm not saying they definitely will make it tight. I would be surprised if this wasn't a 6 or 7 game series. But I'm going to take the Cardinals. They've just shown so much dominance. The way they dismantled the Dodgers team that had all the confidence in the world. And, you know, they had the meme. The reason the Dodgers were partying in the pool in Arizona was because of the drought in LA. Because of how many times they've lost. And they had so much confidence. You saw it in that pool jumping. They were so confident about themselves. And the way they just destroyed the team, it's very difficult to say that this team doesn't have the upper hand right now.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely pinpoint that the Red Sox had some weaknesses exposed by the Detroit Tigers through their great pitching. Considering that the Red Sox were very good throughout the regular season, averaged over 5 runs a game, and they also had some very good pitching and bullpen work the whole year, but their hitting was the thing that got this whole team rolling game after game, day after day for this team. And they were kind of exposed in that championship series, got to admit it. And yes, I am a little concerned with the better pitching staff, per se, in St. Louis, who really shut down those Dodgers. I mean, I saw that in Game 6, 9-0 victory. Yasiel Puig had as many errors as the Dodgers had hits, and that was 2. So they really shut down the Dodgers, who have a great lineup, by the way. Top to bottom, one of the best hitting lineups in the league. So I do think that this team has a shot to beat my Red Sox, but I really do think the home field advantage is going to be very key in this series, and you have to consider that.
Well, I have a bold prediction. You know, I want to do some bold predictions here. My first bold prediction is a shutout by the Cardinals will be thrown in Game 2 by Michael Wacha in Boston. That's my bold prediction. Boston will get shut out at Fenway. Another bold prediction, the series will be led 2-1 after Game 3 by the Red Sox. So the Red Sox will bounce back after that, and I think Lackey will be able to defeat Kelly, but I think it'll be really, really low scoring. But in the end, I say St. Louis wins this series, and I'm going to say that Carlos Beltran wins World Series MVP.
Bold predictions for you, Noah. But I just want to make you guys all aware that usually when we're talking about series all about the pitching, usually we're surprised and it ends up being a very hitter-heavy series. I think that has the potential to happen between these two teams because all we're talking about is the pitching on both sides, which is fantastic, don't get me wrong, but both these teams have some very good hitters as well, and I would not be surprised to see some high-scoring affairs in really big-time games, possibly like I would see a Game 5 in St. Louis being a very high-scoring game. Also, Game 2 at Fenway Park. I think the other games will be pitcher's duels as we expect, but I think that the hitting is going to be very key. And I think Holiday, Ortiz, Pedroia, Beltran, Adams of the Cardinals, and then also Shane Victorino of the Red Sox. So just numerous great players on both sides of the ball. It's going to be very exciting. But in the end, I do hope my Red Sox can pull through, and I do believe they can.
Yeah, so I think that concludes our baseball section, right, Blake? Or do you have anything else to add into our conversation? Anything that any reason else that you think the Red Sox are going to win? Or yeah.
Yeah, I just got to add about those Dodgers. Clayton Kershaw reportedly was offered an over $300 million contract by the Dodgers during the regular season, but his agent reported saying that Kershaw did not want to kind of work out the negotiations during the regular season, but definitely the Dodgers look to re-sign him and re-sign most of their team, which was very successful during the last season. But it also begs the question as well that should Don Mattingly and the Dodgers have played their final 2 weeks trying to get that home field advantage in the NL, that was kind of exposed playing in St. Louis. They just could not beat those Cardinals. And Don Mattingly and the Dodgers kind of tanked off the last 2 weeks after clinching the West to kind of get healthy. But it kind of begs the question, if they had gotten home field advantage, would they be in the World Series right now? So just got to add on those points about the Dodgers. And also credit the Detroit Tigers. Great season for them, trying to reach the World Series 2 consecutive years. Max Scherzer, great pitcher. 23 wins this season. Justin Verlander, just as good as he was last year. Not record-wise, but pitching-wise. Great year for the Tigers, though, how tough it is for this team to get back to the World Series 2 years in a row. We saw it with the Rangers a few years ago, but credit the Tigers and credit the Dodgers. Great seasons for them, but just ready for this World Series between the Cardinals and my Red Sox. Can't wait for it, and that is our baseball section for the Blake and Noah show this week.
And now on to Say What.
So, did you break up with Lauren?
No, I didn't. As a matter of fact, she's coming over for dinner tonight. Say what?
Yeah, so we're time for Say What, and we're going to start with the 25 biggest sports cliches. At number 25, we have Someone Has to Step Up. At number 24, we have The Aristocrats. At 23, we have He Who Smelt It Dealt It. 22, It's a Game of Inches. 21, They Made Us Feel Like Natural Women. 20, I think the races should be kept separate. 19, we just have to keep on, I can't say that word. Keep on, swear word, that chicken. 18, we shocked the world. 17, I feel fat. 9/11 was an inside job. Games aren't played on paper. There is no God. Sometimes it's hard to make it through the day without ending it all. I'm every woman, it's all in me. Don't call it a comeback, we've been here for years. 10, defense wins championships. 9, we have to get some stanky on our hang down. 8, smack it up, flip it. Now 7, we have to bring our A game. 6, they're better the team today. At number 5, can't say that one either. Wow, okay. Number 4, we just have to execute. 3, you have to give it 110%. 2, this is a must-win game. And number 1, we're taking it one game at a time. 25 biggest sports cliches. And now, in case you don't know, there has been the whole Jim Irsay thing. But now we have a fake one that says, Jim Irsay apologizes. I need to remember that being a choker is a difficult reality for Peyton Manning to face. Yeah.
Just listening right there.
Yeah. It's a great reaction, guys. You know, like not real, but you know, it's still like it's kind of true. He says in this article, the fake article, it says those comments and the firestorm they have created are on me. I need to be smarter about what I say to the media, even when I'm saying known facts. There is really no good way to talk about Peyton's time here without without hurting his feelings due to the fact that he's one of the greatest chokers in sports history. He's sensitive about that. It's a difficult reality for him to face, and I totally get it. So basically, not real article, but they're definitely taking a shot at Peyton Manning, and I'm sure he wouldn't enjoy that. So on to our next one. And this is the worst fantasy football team of the week in America at quarterback Phillip Rivers. So you're saying, oh, not bad, 13 points there. But wait till you see what comes next. Ray Rice, 4 points. Le'Veon Bell, 5 points. Danny Amendola, 0 points. Robert Woods, 0 points. DeAndre Hopkins, 2 points. Brandon Myers, 0 points. Texans defense, -5 points. And Blair Walsh, 4 points for a combined score of 23 with a scoring adjustment of 5, so they ended up with 28 points. Pretty bad week for that team, and whoever owns this team, I would suggest changing around your lineup. You don't want to have Robert Woods starting, but tough week for that guy, and of course, we have to wrap it up with one of the more interesting stories. We have Scott Van Slyke having his little stare down with, I believe it is Joe Kelly, I believe. Yes, Joe Kelly.
Yeah, Joe Kelly. And this lasted nearly 15 minutes, and it was right after the Star-Spangled Banner. All the teammates for the Dodgers and the Cardinals both exited to the dugout, except for those two. who were kind of in their stare down with their teammates giggling in the dugouts. But it began with business as usual, but players from both teams have lined up outside the dugouts for the national anthem, standing at attention with their hats over their hearts. Most of them retreated after the final note, all except for Van Slyke and Kelly, who remained standing at attention, hats over hearts for nearly 15 minutes, long enough for the ground crew to finish its final preparations and for the Cardinals starters to take the field. They stood still there, Van Slyke at a step off the dugout rail on the third base side, and Kelly all the way out along the edge of the grass near the first base line, and St. Louis pitcher Michael Walker was on the mound, and then the umpire had to get both players to exit to the dugout. So, very interesting story. Right before kind of a tense game, tense moment, and both teammates were kind of just staring each other down. And both teams were kind of giggling and laughing, kind of a light moment before such a tense moment in the game. But just a weird, wacky story between two weird guys, and Van Slyke and Joe Kelly, who pitched Game 5 for the Cardinals in their NLCS.
Yeah, and apparently Van Slyke thought he won. But video replay, there was actually video replay for this, shows that Kelly actually faked him out and Slyke turned and went into the dugout first. So it was almost foreshadowing their loss. Van Slyke couldn't hold it for long enough, fell for the fake, and Kelly won. But, you know, that's how it ends up. Cardinals are going to the World Series, Dodgers aren't, and this will be the highlight of their season. Scott Van Slyke's stare down.
Yeah, just bad memory for the Dodgers in that Game 6, but maybe a little lightheartedness and fun to it right before what was a terrible game for those Dodgers.
Yeah, and that concludes our Say What section. So before we do our shoutouts, we have some birthdays, of course, starting with the great Mickey Mantle. It's his birthday today, but that's not it. We also have Juan Marichal and Keith Hernandez, so great day in baseball. Lots of famous players there. Not much in basketball, but in football we have Willis McGahee, Ray Childress, Ray Rhodes, Jim Norton, and yeah, that about does it for football. So this is a pretty good day. Mickey Mantle, big birthday for us, and yeah, that's it. That's it. That's it for it. So 2 weeks in a row, we've had Hall of Fame players. We had Jerry Rice last week, and now Mickey Mantle. So really good 2 weeks. Happy birthday to everybody. And Blake, time for your shoutouts.
Yeah, shout-outs this week. A shout-out to my family. Love you guys all. And looking forward to a great week this week. Got a shout-out to my Red Sox, finally in the World Series. Also, shout-out to my second favorite team, the NL, those Dodgers. Great year this year, guys. Clayton Kershaw will win the Cy Young Award. And then looking forward to their season next year, when I think they will get back to this place and hopefully shine in the NLCS. But we'll have to see with that. Also, shout out to Jameis Winston, definitely supplanting his spot in the Heisman award ceremony in New York, I think, with his performance. Florida State now ranked number 2 in the BCS. Very surprising. This is the best Knowles team I've ever seen in person. And then USC, my Trojans lost to Notre Dame. A very sad game for me, being a Trojans fan on what was otherwise a great night in sports for me. This team is not going to have a great year this year. They're already 4-3. This is the earliest they've ever had 3 losses since the Pete Carroll's first year, and also the first time that USC has lost in South Bend in 5. They've won 5 consecutive times, and it was the first time that they had lost in South Bend since 2001, which was also Pete Carroll's first year. So, shout out to my Trojans. Hopefully they can turn it around, and we'll just have to see about that. So those are all my shout outs for this week.
Okay, shout out to Ohio State, pulling off that win. I ain't even worried, though. 7-0. Here we go. We're still making our run. We're going to hit that Rose Bowl. Don't worry about it. And shout out to the BCS committee for continually getting things wrong. Oregon should be number 2. I'm sorry to Florida State. But I think Oregon is a better team. They will prove that. I think they're going to win the rest of their games. I think they'll go number 2. Shout out to Marcus Mariota. Still should be the Heisman number 1. Though Jameis Winston is creeping up on him. Let's see. Shout out to Derrick Rose. Let's go. Phenomenal. Just phenomenal start to the preseason. I've been really excited to see him. Gives me chills every time I hear his name announced, Has been so long since I've heard it. Shout out to my family, to everybody. Shout out to the White Sox who signed Jose Dario Abreu. Very talented Cuban. Hopefully he pans out. Hopefully ends up like a Jonas Cespedes or a Yasiel Puig Cuban type player. And shout out to my family, to all of my cousins, to everybody. And yeah, those are my shout outs.
Yeah, great episode to have this week, Noah. And I thank all of our fans as well as Jake Thinker, NFL Analysis. Another week where we had him on our show. And thank you, Jake. And guys, just like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter. And thank you. And be sure to try to get us down this week. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, and sorry guys for all of the terrible connection we've had over the past 2 weeks. It seems like it works perfectly fine, and then midway through the show, the connection just gets really bad. But yeah, so that does it for the show. Thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed the show, tell all your friends to listen. Like our Facebook page, follow us on Twitter, and of course, recommend your friends to like us on Twitter. For Blake Devine, I'm Noah Taborda. Good night.